Hi everybody, thanks for tuning in today for our Academic Freedom Workshop. I'm Danielle Staples, your Associate Dean here at ACC, and I'm going to walk you through this workshop today. So today's topic is academic freedom. Academic freedom is a concept that many individuals feel they understand until they encounter a situation that challenges what they think is academic freedom. So today we're going to discuss academic freedom from both the instructor and the institution perspective. Hopefully we'll clarify any uncertainties that you may have had, and at the end of the presentation you'll find a reference list to further assist you, and as always, I am always open to questions. So one of the biggest areas of confusion I've noticed over the years is the understanding the difference between academic freedom and intellectual freedom. Intellectual freedom is the right for every individual to both seek and receive information from all points of view without restriction and without censorship. This freedom provides for free access to all expressions of ideas, regardless of who may be offended by these ideas, which allows citizens to explore any and all sides of a question, of a cause, or of a movement. Academic freedom is the freedom of scholars to pursue the truth in a manner that is consistent with professional standards of inquiry. Academic freedom applies to institutions as well as scholars and students as well as faculties. It is reinforced by course cases and tradition, and it's given particular strength by faculty tenure. This First Amendment right of academic freedom only applies to scholars in public institutions. Scholars of private institutions must reference their contract for details on academic freedom at their university. Democracy protects academic freedom on the grounds that the open pursuit of knowledge and the truth provides substantial benefits to society. So, what's the difference between the two forms of freedom, between academic freedom and intellectual freedom? The difference between these two forms is that intellectual freedom is extended to all citizens according to the American Library Association. Under the Constitution's First Amendment, academic freedom applies to institutions, students, professors, and scholars. In addition, academic freedom can be limited, and teachers and professors as well as students cannot just brazenly use their intellectual freedom in the classroom. Therefore, limitations on what can or cannot be spoken apply to academic freedom, whereas intellectual freedom has no limits and cannot be censored because of the objections by a few, or of the majority. So what does academic freedom look like in the classroom? In the face-to-face classroom and in the online classroom, academic freedom gives teachers the opportunity to freely discuss their subject matter. It is not appropriate for an instructor to engage in controversial topics that do not relate to their subject matter. For example, let's look at a case in 1991, Bishop versus Aronov. In this case, an exercise physiology professor sometimes would speak about his religious beliefs during instructional time. He also taught an optional class about the evidence of God in human physiology using the intelligent design theory. The University of Alabama asked the Professor Bishop to stop interjecting his personal religious beliefs in class and to stop holding the optional classes with his students about religious perspectives. Bishop sued the university for violating academic freedom, and the case was finalized in the U.S. Court of Appeals. The court agreed with the University of Alabama that the university has the authority to limit the content and the curriculum of courses offered, and that by Professor Bishop interjecting religious beliefs to this captive audience during an exercise and physiology course, it did not offer legitimate pedagogical benefits. So the court did clarify that the university could only limit the instructor's speech during class, What Professor Bishop chooses to speak about outside of his time as a citizen of America is protected by his First Amendment right to free speech. So, for example, if he wanted to offer the optional class about the intelligent design theory, he could, but he would have to open it to a school-wide, school-recognized class that anybody could opt into, rather than his captive audience of just his students that could feel inappropriate pressure to participate in that type of class. Beyond controversial, off-topic subjects, institutions can also limit the demeanor and the language used in the classroom. And this is both face-to-face and online distance learning. So, for example, if we look at a 1986 case, Martin versus Parrish, Professor Martin was an economics instructor at Midland College. He received multiple student complaints and warnings for using profane language in the classroom, and eventually he was fired for his unprofessional speech. Martin defended himself, saying that he used that language to motivate the students and to demonstrate his frustration with their low performance. And he sued the college, saying that they violated his First Amendment right to free speech. In the end, the court supported the decision of the institution. They found that Mr. Martin's speech was not germane to the subject matter, had no educational function. There are times when obscene language can be appropriate in a higher education classroom, but in this instance, the language had no academic purpose or real justification to be used. So, what limits can a school set? Instructors may not use academic freedom to harass, threaten, intimidate, to ridicule, or impose their views on students. Quintessentially, instructors cannot use their intellectual freedom, which would allow for them to express or impose their own views that may ridicule or intimidate others in the pursuit of academic freedom. And this has been the theme throughout so far. What about academic freedom in research? I found a passage by Dr. Donald Down, who describes academic freedom in research perfectly. So I'm going to quote Dr. Downs. Quote, "The pursuit of knowledge should be even freer than teaching. Research is intended to push the frontiers of knowledge, so obligations to the sensibilities of students and colleagues are minimal or non-existent. Researchers should be governed by professional standards of competence subject to the collective government of peers and society, but not to punishment or discipline unless it contravenes the law or ethical academic norms, as in the case of plagiarism. There should be no formal sanctions for ideas, however offensive. The right to offend is an essential, indispensable ingredient of intellectual freedom." End quote. So academic freedom has quite a few more liberties in the research area than in the actual instructional area. So what about that academic freedom and research? Who owns this material once new knowledge has been found? So the academic freedom that the professors enjoy is going to be limited to the contracts that they have entered into with their schools. If the contract for research is a joint contract, then the professor may have the ability to reap benefits from his or her intellectual properties that have been provided to the university throughout the research. Products emanating from this research will inevitably be marketed or retaught by the university under its name because of their research funding. Therefore, the area of the summary that focused on courseware copyright law could also apply to research and products. Institutions have the rights to any research that is conducted under the use of their research funding. Therefore, if researchers discover a new product or discovery, the university has exclusive rights to this discovery unless joint ownership exists between the faculty and the university regarding this intellectual property. In conclusion, academic freedom is the right of teachers, faculties, and students to conduct research and to publish their results with full freedom that is subject to adequate performance and other academic duties. This freedom gives teachers the autonomy to freely discuss their subject matter, but it does require teachers and students to refrain from discussing controversial matters that have no relation to the subject. Limitations on academic freedom may be placed by the institution, but it is highly advised that these be in writing and clearly stated before any teacher is hired or tenured. For further reading and for many of the citations used in this presentation today, please see the reference list. And again, feel free to ask any questions. Thank you.